I used to think that creepy was a word people threw around too lightly, until I worked with Julian. He was our summer intern, a pale, soft-spoken guy who seemed eager to please. At first, his behavior was just off. He'd stand in my office doorway and wait for me to look up, never knocking, just staring until I acknowledged him. When I'd ask if he needed help with a spreadsheet, he'd just smile, a thin, tight expression that didn't reach his eyes, and say, "I'm just observing the workflow." By week 3, the observations became personal. I'd mention a specific brand of coffee I liked in a private conversation with a friend, and the next morning, a cup of it would be sitting on my desk. No note, no "you're welcome," just the steam rising from the lid. Then came the comments about my commute. "The bridge was backed up today, wasn't it?" he asked one Tuesday. I hadn't told him which way I drove to work. The escalation happened on a Thursday. I stayed late to finish a project, and the office was a tomb of grey cubicles and humming servers. I saw Julian sitting at his desk, his monitor off, just staring at my reflection in the dark glass of his screen. I packed my bag and left without saying goodbye, my skin crawling the entire way to the elevator. That night, at 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered, thinking it might be an emergency. It was only the sound of heavy, rhythmic breathing. Then, Julian's voice. A flat, robotic monotone. "You forgot to lock the side gate." My heart didn't just race, it stopped. I crept to my bedroom window and looked down into the backyard. The motion sensor floodlight was already on. Julian was standing in the center of my lawn, wearing his office khakis and a button-down shirt, staring directly up at my window. He wasn't moving. He wasn't hiding. He was just there, as if standing in my yard in the dead of night was the most natural thing in the world. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. The next morning, HR informed me that Julian had been fired effective immediately. Apparently, he'd been caught accessing my personal files and GPS data from the company server. My boss whispered something about undiagnosed issues and social disorders, trying to sympathize. But they didn't see him in the light of the flood lamp. They didn't hear the breathing on the phone. Now, every time a floorboard creaks or a shadow shifts in my yard, I wonder if Julian is still observing the workflow. The storm was a once-in-a-century event, the kind that turns the sky a bruised purple and makes the wind howl like a wounded animal. Most of the staff at the insurance firm had headed home early, but I was stuck finishing a claim with Elias, the new guy. Elias was unremarkable, a man who blended into the beige walls of the office, rarely speaking unless spoken to. As the rain turned into a horizontal deluge, the power groaned and died. The emergency lights kicked on, casting a sickly red glow over the hallway. "I'll go check the backup generator," Elias said calmly. His voice was oddly steady, given the chaos outside. I sat at my desk, the silence of the office underscored by the violent thrumming of the rain. Then I heard it, the heavy, mechanical thud of the front doors being manually deadbolted. Then the side exit. Then the back. Confused, I walked toward the security station. I found Elias standing there, but he wasn't looking for a generator. He was systematically pulling the cables out of the security DVR, his face illuminated by the red emergency light. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. There was absolutely nothing behind his eyes. No anger, no excitement, just a terrifying, hollow void. "The storm is very loud," he said, his voice barely a whisper. No one would hear a thing over the wind. He started walking toward me, reaching into his pocket. I didn't ask questions. I didn't scream. I ran. I bolted toward the front lobby, but the doors were solid glass and heavy steel, locked tight. I looked back and saw Elias's silhouette rounding the corner, moving with a slow, predatory confidence. He knew I was trapped. I grabbed a heavy brass coat rack from the waiting area and swung it with every ounce of adrenaline-fueled strength I had. The tempered glass of the front door shattered with a sound like a gunshot. I dived through the jagged hole, cutting my arms, and ran into the blinding rain. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station 3 miles away. The police found Elias's car in the office parking lot the next morning. The engine was cold. His wallet, phone, and a set of zip ties were sitting on the passenger seat. Elias himself was gone. He never showed up for his paycheck, and the background check he'd submitted turned out to be a web of stolen identities. I quit that job the next day. Sometimes, when it rains particularly hard, I find myself staring at my front door, wondering if Elias is out there in the dark, still looking for a room to lock. At 17, your biggest worry should be midterms or who's going to the prom. My worry was Marcus. Marcus was 37, a lifer at the grocery store where I worked my first part-time job. He was charming in a way that felt oily, always volunteering to show me the ropes. He started by helping me in the dairy cooler, lingering too long in the cramped, cold space, blocking the only exit with his body while he talked about his special connection to people who really understood him. Then came the texts. I'd given my number to the group chat for shift swaps, but Marcus started messaging me privately. "You look tired today. Blue suits you, but you should sleep more," one message read. I didn't reply. Then, "I saw you at the park today with your friends. That guy you were talking to seems loud. You deserve someone who listens." I hadn't seen Marcus at the park. I started feeling a prickling sensation on the back of my neck every time I walked to my car after a closing shift. I'd see his beat-up black SUV parked 3 rows away, the engine running, the headlights off. When I'd look, he'd just wave slowly and drive away. The terror peaked on a rainy Tuesday night. I was in my bedroom, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was a rhythmic, metallic sound against my second-story window. I pulled the curtain back just an inch. Marcus was standing on a heavy-duty extension ladder he'd brought from his truck, leaning it against my house. He wasn't trying to break in. He was just holding a single, wilted flower against the glass, grinning a wide, toothy smile that made me sick to my stomach. I screamed. My father ran in, and Marcus scrambled down the ladder like a ghost in the dark. The aftermath was a blur of police reports, HR meetings, and a restraining order that felt like a flimsy shield against a monster. Marcus was fired, of course. Management apologized profusely. But the grocery store isn't just a store to me anymore. It's a place where I learned that a smile can be a mask. I'm 24 now, and I still keep my curtains blacked out. Every time a tree branch brushes my window in the wind, I freeze, waiting for the rhythm of the tap to return.